Uh, Last year I took a class called Muse 99.
My most worthless class, I think I'm taking it right now, and it's genetics.
Well, I don't know if I would call it worthless. Certainly a class I was really confused on why we took it. We took 2 ed tech classes. I'm an education major.
Can you tell me about that class? What was the class content?
So it's not like a traditional class. Essentially, we had to go to 10 different performances throughout the year and then get like a signature of it and then take a picture of all of those signatures and turn it in.
Line, so it was a little bit harder to kind of get engaged with it, but I thought it had value. And then we took a second course during our junior year, and all of it was just about the uses of AI in the classroom. So for every assignment, we used AI, and for every assignment we did, none of it ever got looked at to like be graded. So whether you did great or whether you didn't do great, you got 100 on it kind of automatically, which, I mean, some people wouldn't be mad at that, but when you're looking for feedback, it was kind of a little disappointing. So I wouldn't say it was worthless, but I was looking for more from it.
Okay, and why would you say that that's the most worthless class you've ever taken?
Because it took so much time out of my schedule. Like I went to a performance, I think every week, and each performance is at least an hour and a half long. And also, that's not my major anymore, so it's just kind of pointless at this point.
In the second class in particular, we often had a lot of assignments where we'd have to come up with kind of creative solutions. So for example, one of our assignments involved us making videos to kind of teach the content. And rather than kind of creatively coming up with those on our own, the kind of preempted answer was just throw it into one of the AI systems to kind of come up with a script or to come up with all of it, which it did save us more time, but it just didn't seem as creative and it didn't seem as genuine as something we could do. And again, we turned that in and we never really got any feedback for it. So that was, in my opinion, a little disappointing. But yeah, just not being able to do as many of those creative things naturally, I thought was a little disappointing.
The teacher is not good. Not good teacher. So he generates his slides with AI, generates his lesson plan with AI, tests are AI, everything is AI. This man is probably a little too old to be teaching, no offense. He seems like a great guy, but I took a test this week, first test. It's like the only grade in the grade book right now. When he's presenting slides, he will be saying something completely different than what shows up on the slide. Sometimes the slides are just wrong and he'll say that outright. So yeah.
Ooh, that sounds cool. So, out of those different experiences that you had from your most worthless class, what would you say is a positive takeaway you have from that?
I definitely got like a bunch of exposure to a wide variety of music, and I think it definitely just broadened horizons a lot, and yeah.
My professor had a really good quote, and he said that AI will never replace teachers because teachers have that human aspect that you just need in a classroom. But he did point out that teachers that know how to use AI will replace teachers. So just being able to have kind of an awareness of how to use those tools, when to use those tools, how to evaluate if your students are using those tools correctly, that was a big takeaway for me. So even though some parts of the class I wasn't overly thrilled with, kind of taking that away I thought was a good thing that'll definitely help me in my career in the future.
I think it has taught me a bit about teaching myself and some skills to do with that. Also, I think it would have been better if I had a better teacher, but there are some things from this class that I'm taking into other classes because I'm a biology major. So even just hearing about different like things that happen in genetics or learning a little bit more about genetics, it transfers over to my other classes.
Okay, and what was the worst performance that you went to as part of that class?
So there's this ensemble called the New Music Ensemble where essentially the composers are allowed to write anything that they want. And the performance was really bad because two of the performers were just screaming into a mic as loud and as hard as they could and just blowing out the mic system. It definitely sounded torturous.
Okay, and what was the best performance that you went to as part of that?
I would say probably, I forget his last name, but Kyle's senior recital. He was a percussionist that graduated last year, and his was really cool because he used all different types of instrumentation, and the room started out dark, and the music gave like fairy forest vibes, and it was really pretty.
Cool. And now I'm going to ask you a bonus question. Oh, just surprised. What is the most worthless class you think you took in high school?
Oh, goodness.
Ooh, that's a really good question. Um,
Any math class.
There was this English class.
well, my gut reaction answer is pre-calc because I hated pre-calc, but that was worthless just because I hated it. Man, that's a good question. I don't think we had any classes that were worthless per se. I think they were all pretty good, and they were all engaging and interactive. We had a financial literacy course that I wish would have went longer. It was only like a quarter long or half semester long, so it was very short. But I wouldn't call it worthless though, because I got something out of it. So, yeah, I felt very lucky to have a very good high school experience. I wouldn't say I had any worthless high school classes.
And why would you say that that's the most worthless class you took in high school?
Because a lot of the math and the way that it was taught was just poor. The teachers were great and they knew what they were talking about, but there were so many easier ways to do every single question. And the teachers just always taught the hardest way to do it when it could have been so much better.
I think I took it my junior year, so this is the year after COVID happened. So we were in school for half the week, out of school for half the week. For me, learning math that way was not, I just didn't gel with it, so that was a big problem. My teacher, he's a really good teacher, but his personality wasn't always the greatest, especially if you weren't a great student like I was in pre-calculus. So it kind of felt like any time that there was a question in class, he would call on me, and of course I wouldn't know the answer. And he'd go, "Oh wow, I can't believe you didn't know the answer." So that just kind of made me not like the class as much, make me not want to try as hard. I know a lot of my classmates, either at college or in high school, can relate to a similar experience where just kind of a teacher or professor's demeanor, their attitude, kind of how they carry themselves, really makes you not want to take the class or learn about the content. So I'd say probably a combination of COVID learning, but also me not being a very good math student, coupled with kind of a teacher who not a lot of people, was a very tough, demanding teacher. I think those were 3 reasons I didn't like pre-calc back in the day.
The teacher was a new teacher, I want to say. She was pretty young. The class, no one was interested in it. Lesson plan was all over the place. And I remember we had a bunch of different books that she wanted us to read throughout the year. And we made it through 2 out of 6. I want to say like 6 that she had lined up. Because every time we would come in class and she'd be like, okay, who did the reading? Tried to talk about the book, all that. No one was doing it. No one was interested in the class. We got nowhere and learned nothing. But nobody failed, so she didn't fail a single person. So yeah, yeah.
Okay, and what's your positive takeaway from that?
My positive takeaway is I know what I'm not going to do when I become a teacher and I have to teach math.
Very nice. And then what would you say is your like overall positive takeaway from your pre-calc class that you used today?
I think that's a good question. I think the big takeaway from that class was critical thinking, right? Sometimes the answer is not black and white. Sometimes you have to look in the gray for it. And being able to have those skills, or at least develop those. So I know for a fact I didn't have them when I got into that class. But by the time I was done, I developed that. And that particular teacher, he could have been a college professor if he wanted to. He really knew his stuff. And for the students that did really well in that class, he taught them incredibly well. I just happened to not do well because I wasn't good at math. So kind of to take those things away and see that, you know, even with teachers you don't like, there's some positives. For example, he was really challenging, and he was deliberately challenging to try to get the most out of you that he possibly could. So kind of as a future educator, I want to be like that in the future. Be challenging, not demeaning to students, but be challenging to get the most out of them that you can possibly get, because they will definitely wow you in terms of what they can do.
Not much. I genuinely, I can't think of a single thing to say about that class. I guess it taught me, like, teachers aren't always the best and they don't always know what they're doing. Because that's the first time that I remember that I had a teacher who just wasn't great at what they were doing. Before that, you kind of always look at your teachers as, you know, this perfect person, you look up to them. So maybe that's something I took out of it, but I can't say there was much productive about it.